What's up guys and welcome. You are watching Fazi Fitness. So guys, channel membership is now live. Link is in the description and the first comment. Do check it out. That would really help support the channel. So Ramon Dino checks in at 19 weeks out of this year's Miss Olympia. Probably one of the most important Olympias of his career. And that, I must say, is an unbelievable off-season condition. So the amount of effort and time Ramon Dino is dedicating this time to posing and presentation, that is supposed to make a massive difference in his stage presence at the Olympia this year, as Ramon has now been among the best posers in classic physique division. So that new placement of his feet that we are seeing from him right now, that is 100% looking a lot better, as this allows him to create more of an X-frame, more V-taper, and that is something that has been missing from Ramon ever since he came onto the scene. And this is a very simple fact. Ramon has to find the perfect angles, because the main reason he doesn't have the best X-frame out there is because he doesn't have that big sweeping quads. In comparison to, for instance, a guy like Terence Ruffin or Mike Sommerfeld and Oskar Leshinsky. And in my opinion, his X-frame, that is probably the worst in that Olympia top 6 in classic physique division. But on the flip side, Ramon Dino has the density and the muscle maturity to stand next to any one of those guys and push them very hard, just like he pushed Chris Bumstead back in 2023. So the biggest factor that held Ramon Dino back, especially in all the 3 shows that he did last year, that wasn't his shape. It was his aesthetics and the lack of density, because he failed to peak 100% in all the 3 shows, including the post-Olympia show, which by the way he won against Niall Darwin. But we all know that wasn't the best look of Ramon Dino. Now Ramon probably has the best developed abs, one of the best midsection in that Olympia top 6. His side chest and the back double biceps, that is also one of the best. So it's gonna come down to how great of a first impression he is able to make on the judges as well as on the fans when he steps on the stage at the Olympia in October this year. Because his front shots, they are gonna be the deciding factor. Next up, we have an 18 weeks out physique update from Wilkin, looking to make his Olympia debut in October this year, and he wants to make it a very memorable one, just like his best friend Martin-Fitzwater did last year. And right now the man is looking like an absolute unit, and we still have 19 weeks to go till the Olympia this year. So Brett and Martin, they are gonna be training together for this year's Olympia, so get ready to watch some seriously hardcore workouts as both these guys prep for the Olympia this year, because we have seen it in the past that both these guys, they go all in. Both these guys are some of the most hardcore trainers in the entire pro league at the moment. Now we have seen throughout this year that Brett Wilkin has been looking very impressive, apart from those 3 weeks where he got sick. But other than that, he has been looking rock solid, and not just in the physique updates, in all of the guest posings that we have seen from him so far. Because even at the peak of his off-season, he stayed very lean, in a very good body composition. Now Brett has been training for this Olympia for many months now, since he kind of got a head start, as he won the Legion Sports just 2 weeks before the Olympia last year. And that was the first Olympia qualifier for this year. So this will most probably gonna be the most productive off-season for Brett Wilkin. And all that's left to see at this point is how much muscle and how much rawness he's able to maintain this time while getting shredded, while getting ready for this upcoming Olympia. Because that has always been a big issue for him. He gets shredded up to a point where he doesn't have any complaints. He's probably one of the most conditioned guy in the men's open. But while doing that, he loses a lot of wow factor, a lot of his size. And that is what we saw last year too at the Legion Sports. He was looking very huge, very bubbly, just 2 weeks prior to that show. And he lost quite a lot of wow factor in that last week leading into that show. Now, he will be aiming for the Olympia top 10 at his Olympia debut. But the question right now is that, whom does he take out in order to accomplish that task? So Blessing Awodibu posted some more pictures from his recent prep, which by the way was the longest prep of his entire career. And he did the most amount of cardio leading into that show. But still you can see that he wasn't even close to being in a contest ready condition. And I'm gonna say it wasn't just the peak week protocol. I do not think that their peak week strategy Even if that was 100% right, he still would not have been able to fight for that Legion Sports title this past weekend. So this was Blessing at 270 pounds. I am talking about these pictures right here. So this is the point where they must have dropped the hammer and they must have gone very aggressive in terms of the food cut to speed up the process. So Blessing went from 320 plus pounds during the off-season down to 270 pounds. And it seems like he had to drop another 10 pounds to get in shape. And that raises another serious question. Whether going up to 320 plus pounds, doing a dirty bulk, whether that was even necessary. Because at this point, it seems like it was kind of unnecessary. But that being said, I want to address a very serious issue here. What's the point of the fans asking Blessing to retire or any FBB pro to retire after just one bad showing? That is such a bad thing to do. You can criticize someone's physique all you want. You can be as harsh as you want. But telling someone to retire, that isn't justified by any means. Because if you guys do not know, most of these guys, including Blessing, they love to train hard, they love to diet, and they all love to step on the bodybuilding stage. So there was something wrong with Blessing's prep this time around. Because if we ignore the legs for a moment and look at just his upper body, even that wasn't as impressive as it was in the past. Even that wasn't popping, especially the way it was back in 2022 when he was working with George Farah. So hopefully him and Stefan, they can figure this out and show up a lot better for whatever show they're planning to do next. Quinton Beastwood checks in at 8.5 weeks out of this upcoming Tampa Pro. So I wonder whether the competition that kind of gets scared when they see a bodybuilder like Quinton Beastwood with those kind of aesthetics and the kind of mass that he's showing right now. Because the thing is, if he's able to put it all together, if he can successfully put on some additional muscle and thickness and also figure out how to nail those final 4 weeks leading into the show, he's probably gonna win most of the shows that he decides to enter. So last year, that wasn't a good run for Quinton Beastwood, especially the New York Pro, where he looked possibly the worst he has ever looked. And that happened when he was working with Nat Jensen. So the biggest change that he made afterwards last year, that was to never let somebody else call the shots for him. He has been very content that he's gonna coach himself and he isn't gonna hire a new coach. And for those of you guys who do not know, he was coaching himself for Toronto Pro last year too. And the man did a pretty good job. But that was also him eating a lot leading into that show to make up for all that lost size that happened during that New York Pro prep. Now this time he has to make sure that all that new muscle tissue that he has built during this past off-season, that sticks. Now he's a very tall guy with a superb X-frame, amazing proportions, probably one of the best out there. But that being said, based on his frame, he still needs more muscle, and I'm gonna say everywhere. Legs are looking very cut and very separated for 8 weeks out of this upcoming Tampa Pro. And we know Tampa Pro this year is turning out to be a very good show that is gonna have a superb lineup based on the amount of competitors entering into that show. So Quinton will have to bring his A game to have a shot at beating guys like John, Muhammad Fadal, John Jewett, and we are probably gonna see a couple of other big names at this upcoming Tampa Pro. So lastly, we have an update from Brandon Kerry. So Brandon is gonna be training alongside 2 other Olympia champions, Samson and Derek, tomorrow. And by the looks of it, the man is showing up very swole. So apparently, Brandon entering the Masters Olympia, that was all just talk. And all Kerry is focused on right now is the Olympia in October. Because he dropped down to 9th place last year, which by the way was Brandon's lowest placing since 2016. But the physique that he presented on this year's Arnold Ohio stage, that same look, that is definitely going to move up some spots at the Olympia this year without any questions. Now as Brandon ages, we are seeing a different mindset when it comes to his training. He's training with intensity. He isn't focused on volume anymore, and he's making sure that he stays injury-free at this phase of his career. Now Brandon has zero intentions of retiring anytime soon. And the recent hike in the prize money, that makes all the sense that all these veterans like William Bonac and Brandon Kerry, they continue to compete. So the biggest change that Brandon made, that was switching coaches for one, and also not going to the Auto Gyms to finish his prep, the place where he trained for so many years. And he also won the Olympia title while working with those guys. But that changed. That did go in his favor, as he showed up a lot better at this year's Arnold. So no Hunter Labrada in this year's Olympia lineup. So Brendan will be gunning to get back into that Olympia top 6. So hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video and smash the subscribe button if you wanna come back for more. Thanks for watching.